What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This video here, we got my 6-liter ripped apart. We'll find out what actually happened to it. So a little backstory on this engine. This is out of my 2005 F350, and it had a bad experience. The head gaskets were gone for roughly a year. I was just dumping water into it till I could get around to fixing it. And then I was pulling a customer's truck home on my 30-foot gooseneck, coming up the escarpment, and the head gaskets finally let right go. Puked all the coolant out. I was probably 40 minutes away from home, so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna drive her. Made it half an hour with no coolant till she finally shut off. I'm impressed that it drove that long with no cooling system, and really what happened to it isn't even that terrible. So I started off taking apart the front cover, got the oil pump gears out, and the oil pump actually isn't that bad. I thought there was going to be some chiclets in there, some stuff like that, but no, there's a couple little dings in the pump, but nothing too bad. So then I got that off, and I got the front apart, I moved up top to take the oil filter housing off and the oil cooler and all that stuff. When I unbolted the filter housing, that's when I realized we have some trouble. I unbolted the 4 bolts to remove the fuel filter housing and the oil filter housing at the same time, like I always do, but I lifted it, and it lifted about that far and got stuck. So I'm like, well, I ran the bolts back in a little bit and took the oil filter cap off, and this is what I found. That's the filter. She's a little bubbled because she got hot. This goo at the bottom here is what is left of the oil filter pipe that comes up in the center here. Now, I took that off. I thought, oh, okay. Where's the rest of the pipe? Turns out I found it. Some of it was caught by the cooler. Some of it is right here, and some of it is down in the oil cooler housing valley. So you can see right down in here, big old chunk of it there, and on top of the screen. But none of it made it past the screen to the high pressure pump, which I'm kind of impressed about. So after I got this off, I started pulling the heads off, pulled my injectors out. The injector in this front hole here was pretty stiff coming out, and when I got it out, the tip just looked nasty. So I'm like, well, there's probably some damage going on in this cylinder. So I got the heads off and everything. Cylinder looked fine. Piston was still good. Nothing major. So I was pulling the lifters out, and 3 of them were stuck. So I'm like, boom, ate a camshaft. So when the cams go, it'll eat a lobe, and then it'll start grinding into the lifter, and then the lifter will get a lip on it, and you can't pull it out because they come out through the top of the bores. So I'm like, oh, we got something interesting going on there. So I was super excited to get into the bottom end. So then I flipped the engine over to pull the pistons out, and upon taking the pistons out, I was looking at the bearings in the bottom end, and they're not that bad. They're not worn out really, but they had all this black crap on them. Like, oh, it just got hot and melted. Or not melted, it just got hot, and that's burnt oil. So I thought, okay, well, that's fine, that's normal, I guess. So then I got the pistons out. I expected to see some super scraping and just destroyed cylinders. Not the case. This one is probably the worst one. See, it's scuffed here. The top 2 rings moved, but the bottom ring is seized right in there, and it's got a bad scuff on this side right here on the skirt. This one here is the second worst. It has some scuffing up here, and a little bit there, and then some here as well. The middle ring and the bottom ring are seized, but the top ring is still good. But all the other ones, they all look fine. No scuffing, no seized rings, nothing. So I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty good. Then I started undoing the crank, and the crank would spin, but it was super tight. So I'm like, well, maybe something was locked up in the crank. It ate a main bearing or something like that. So I got the crank out, didn't eat a bearing. But still, the crank bearings still had all this black crap on it. And I'm like, what in the world is all that stuff? So I pulled the crank out, and then I found out what all that stuff is. We had found the rest of this pipe. So what happened was that pipe got so hot it went to liquid in the housing. Inside the housing here, there's another hole right there that is a valve. So if the pressure gets too high in here and has to dump pressure, it'll open that valve and dump it down into the lifter valley. From the lifter valley, the oil will just run down into the pan. So what happened was, all that liquid plastic went down into the pan. There's a bunch down in the pan, and this is the oil pickup tube. There's plastic all in there. There's plastic, like hardened plastic on the screen in there. So it got so hot, it just went to liquid, went to the bottom of the pan, the oil pump sucked it up and shot it through the entire low pressure system and basically killed the engine before she hot seized. This is what your oil journal for your crank is supposed to look like. This is it full of plastic. There's also another one down further, right there, also full of plastic. That hole down in there is for the piston cooler, so the J-jets, full of plastic. There's a little stringer of plastic hanging out of that one. And then those bigger holes down below, those are the lifter bores. So the lifters that were seized, it basically injection molded around the lifter and it wouldn't come out. And also there's the connecting rod journals on the crankshaft, full of plastic. So basically what happened is it got so hot, it liquefied that standpipe, it shot it through the low pressure system and locked up the engine, because it would have, like, if it loses the low pressure, it's not going to feed the high pressure system, so the high pressure system is just going to run dry. So yeah, I expected a lot more damage in it, but all we really have is a few scuffed pistons. If you could actually get the plastic out of this block, it could probably be reused. I don't know if there might be some thermal cracks in it that you have to watch out for, but how hot would that oil have to be to do that? And it also melted the stinking dipstick. Like, this just sits in the oil, and it got that hot to melt the dipstick. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, so if you want to turn your 6-liter powerstroke into an injection molding machine, all you gotta do is run out of coolant for half an hour towing a trailer. But that's gonna do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.